Hello everyone, welcome to the next session on SAP UI5. In the last episode of SAP UI5, we started with the introduction of SAP UI5. We saw what exactly SAP UI5 framework does. In today's class, we will start with introduction to writing our first code in the controller. And then Hitesh is also asking a question, can we debug the UI5 code, what we have written yesterday? So we can know the data flow. Yes, we can do that, Hitesh. So let's get started first. So by far in the class, we have created a very simple UI5 application using a view and a controller. So let me switch to my SAP Web IDE. And you can see here we have created by far a very simple UI5 application which has one controller and one view inside. For the time being, the type of the view which I chose is the JavaScript view, and hence this JavaScript view can be debugged because JavaScript is a programming language. You can only debug programming languages, nothing else. And since it's a JavaScript view, you can debug this. Now, before we debug or getting into any of the thing, let's quickly open all these artifacts. So just to repeat, we have created our bootstrap for the UI5 using script and script tag in the header of the application. Then later point of time, I have created a view object. This view object exists in our namespace, and the namespace we have defined in the bootstrap local resources. Now the namespace pointing to the root folder of my application. So here Anubhav is the namespace of the project which is pointing to the root folder of the application, and all the references which I will derive later point of time will be always with respect to folder Anubhav. And this is actually just representation of this folder into the code. So you can see here this is just the namespace which we have defined for this root folder. So now all the pointing, all the references which you are going to do in the controller and the view are always and always with respect to this root folder. Okay, so that is what exactly we are doing here. Now later point of time, we are placing this particular view into the body of HTML, and you can see we have created an ID. Maybe I will just change this to content, and just to show you that this is my div element in which I am placing my whole of the view. Then I have a main view which has get controller name and get create content method. In the get controller name, I am just returning the name of my controller with its full path so that UI5 framework can create an object of it. And then later on in create content, I'm just creating object of a button control. The name of this button control could be anything of your choice, and then just return the object of the button out of the view. Rest all this code which was generated is of no meaning at this point of time for us. Then coming to the controller, you will observe that in the controller we have some piece of code generated which we did not yet discussed about, and it has some methods inside. So we'll be talking about it in detail in upcoming chapter or upcoming discussions. So let us go ahead and execute it. So sometimes if you are not able to run your UI5 project, what you need to make sure that your run configuration is set properly. So you can right click on the root folder. You can click on run configurations, and you can go to run, and here you have to give your run configuration, and if there is no run configuration exist, you need to create one. So click on plus button, choose web application, and now you can see it has automatically picked up your index.html file as your run configuration. Click on save and run. You will see your application will launch, and you can see here there is one button in your application which is being displayed over here. Yeah, so this is what we have done by far, a very simple UI5 application using MVC architecture, one model, one view, and one controller. So this is what has been by far achieved. Now let's proceed further and try to understand first of all SAP UI5 SDK. What is SAP UI5 SDK? So whenever you want to go ahead and learn UI5, or you want to find out the details about every single control available in UI5, you can make use of SAP UI5 SDK. So what you just have to do is search for a UI5 SDK on the Google, and now you can see the first link itself, which points to SAP UI5 hana.ondemand.com. This is the link for UI5 SDK. It's called Software Development Kit. So what is exactly SAP UI5 SDK is, and what's the purpose of UI5 SDK? Let's discuss about it. So SAP UI5 SDK is the software development kit for SAP UI5 framework. It is the single source of truth for all the required documentation and API details. So you want to know whether there is a property available into the control or not. You want to know if there is a control which has certain behaviors available or not. All that you can go and check it in SAP UI5 documentation. Now, one more important thing, many people come to me asking study material for UI5. Believe me guys, if somebody giving you study material which is a PDF or some document, don't trust that material, because it's a technology which is changing so fast, and you need to adapt to the changing technology also, and you always would like to refer to up to date documentation, and up to date documentation is something available always on UI5 SDK. Okay, so if somebody giving you the document today and saying okay, this is the material, don't trust, because that material will get outdated maybe in next 2 months itself. So you need to always and always refer to up to date documentation. That's very important for all of you to understand. And UI5 SDK is the up to date documentation for all you need regarding SAP UI5 and Fiori. Clear to everyone? So the link for this is here, and let's have a look at these different sections for UI5 in this. Now, one very important thing I want to notify here is the UI5 framework version. So UI5 framework version is something which is released by SAP, and there is a quarterly release which is done by SAP for UI5 version. Now, what is the current and latest UI5 version what you have in SAP UI5? So you can see always it on the top right corner. This is the latest version of SAP UI5 framework, which is right now available publicly in the market and released by SAP. You can see 1.52 is the latest version of UI5 framework. Now you want to know what are all the different versions we have, and what is the difference or enhancements which have been done in different versions. The single stop shop, once again I would say, is UI5. So you can say documentation, and now in the documentation you can see here all what you need to know. The complete user guide of UI5 is available here, complete end-to-end user guide. You can see in the documentation here. Now here you can come and search for, let's say, version, and you can see previous versions. You can see upgrading these versions of SAP UI5. All the details are available here in these different sections. So what is the innovation, what are the timelines, how they are how they are releasing these versions. About Akamai server, the other day I was discussing, since when it is available. So all the information what you need to know is available under the single hood, this documentation. In fact, the MVC architecture which I discussed about is also having available in this to learn. So you can just click on MVC and you see MVC architecture. You see model, view, and controller. So what is a controller? It contains methods that define how model and view interact. You can also see the data binding concept here. You can see the view, you can see the model. So model is represented using cylinder, and as you all know, data or representation of database is represented using cylinder. So that's your cylinder. Okay, so and then further you can drill down to models. What are all the different types of models we have it in the system, so that you can see here the categories of the model. All of that is very nicely documented under this UI5 documentation. So anytime you stuck with anything or any information you need, the theory part of it, This is the documentation you should refer, because you see it is evolving every day by day. Any latest version SAP release or any update, it happens to this living document rather than referring to a PDF document. So I remember 3 years back, one of the person have given me a very nice UI5 document about learning UI5, but now the document is no more relevant for me, because you see major things have changed since then. There are a lot of new controls, new behaviors, some of the libraries have been deprecated, some of the new features have come in which are used in daily life. So that documentation is no more relevant, and if I go by that documentation I will kill myself, because then the things which I'm learning are kind or old things. Okay, so never refer to any static document with respect to UI5. Always refer to this live document available on internet, absolutely free for you. You can go and refer to this, say UI5 SDK. Clear to everyone? Now moving next to the API reference. If you go to API reference here, now in this section you will find the details about all the application programming interface, which basically of classes. So the other day we were creating a button example using button class. So if I want to know what are all the different properties my button has, you can always go and refer them over here. So I search for button control and press enter, scroll down, and you'll see SAP UI Commerce Library button control. So click here, and now you can see all the different aspects for the button control. So on the top of the list you'll see it belongs to this class called button, and this was deprecated since version 1.38. And then you can see about which component this button belongs to. So this is the application component from SAP side. If you find any issue in this control, you can raise a ticket on this particular component. But will SAP guarantee to support you? Yes or no on this control? Anyone? What do you think? Does SAP guarantee you to support you for this control? Of course not, because this control has been deprecated. It doesn't mean that you can't use it, you can use it, but this has been deprecated. Any point of time you may face any difficulty in this control from the UI5 framework side, they won't help you, there won't be any help. So better to switch to the latest controls which are available. Okay, just for understanding, this is how deprecated control works. Now you can see there are a lot of different controls, lot of libraries, lot of functionalities available here for you to look at. We'll come back to the API reference. Now I switch to samples, and in the samples here you can find the best in suit examples for each of the control. How does a control look like, how does it behave, all that details is available under the single hood called samples. So let's come to samples and search for button. And now if I just switch for button control here, you will see the button details. You can see some samples on the button, but you see, oops, it's not available for UI Commons. The samples are only available for controls which are not deprecated. So you can see, okay, one second, it's my cell phone which is causing an issue. Let me switch it off. Just give me a second. So you can see here the button control. If I go inside, it will show you different samples of button UI. So you can see these are all the different buttons. You can see there's a message coming up at the bottom whenever I'm clicking on the button. So all this is how button looks like. And if you want to see the code, how this button is being designed, you can click on the top right corner. You can see here, show me the source code sample, and it will immediately show you the source code to create the button. But what do we see? We see all the source code is only available into the XML form. So it's an XML view, guys. All the source code what you see here is always and always in XML form. SAP recommends us to use XML views. So there are four types of views in SAP. Whenever you talk about views in SAP, there are four types of views. So there are different variety of views and models. So we talked about MVC architecture last session. So there are four types of views which are available in SAP. First is called JavaScript view, second XML view, you have HTML view, and then you have JSON view. So these are all the four types of views we have it in SAP. So as the name suggests, based on the type, the different style will be used. So if it's JavaScript, you will use JavaScript programming technique to create the view object. XML, HTML, and JSON accordingly you will be using. Then comes is the controller. So what is the controller here? So controller is always JavaScript, guys. Okay, controller is always JavaScript, because that's the only programming language you have it. And then comes the model. So model represents the data, and then there are four types of models available in UI5. First is called JSON model, second is XML model, third is called resource model, and then finally called OData model. So these are all the four models we have it in SAP UI5 available for us to define a model object, our data object. Okay, we'll discuss about everything, each of these things in detail in our upcoming chapters. Okay, now there's a question here: how can we change web IDE version? I suppose we want to work on lower version than current one. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. So what you have to do is, when I will show you using a template to create web IDE based application, that time I'll show you that how can you switch the version. You can also do that quite easily. Go to run configuration, select your file, URL components, and there has to be an option for version also. Let me just quickly check it. So there should be a way to change this version in UI5. Just give me a second. I go to settings, code completion, code editor, and just check it down. Showing there has to be some section where we can change this. So right now I am not able to find it. Let me just check it. Git settings. No, Git settings is not for this purpose of version, Swami. So it's for the purpose of something else. We will discuss about it in detail in later point of time, but right now I'm not able to see. But yes, when you creating a project from template, so what typically happens whenever we are creating a UI5 application? Do you think we write every single line of code the way I'm doing here? We don't do it, guys. We use something called ready to use templates in UI5, and when we are using it, just to show you, answer your question, Archana. So what we do is we say right click new project from template, and when we are creating a project, you can see here we choose the UI5 version while creating the project from template. So all maybe your company having a server with version 1.28, so that's when you switch to this version and you work with it rather than latest version. So if there is a mismatch in the version of UI5 on which you built the project, and the version which your UI5 server supports, then the project will not run. So this is what is also covered in our course. So wait for the right time to come. You will understand this. Maybe right now it is too early for you to understand. It's just like, if you go to a doctor, if doctor gives you high dose of antibiotic, you will die. So that's why doctor give you a pill to take it every day, small doses. So still you kill the germs, still you don't have any chances of infection, and you survive as well. But if I give you high dose of antibiotic right away, you all will die. You all will stop coming to my chapters from the next day. And that's what I don't want to do it. I want to go step by step. You take step by step so that your fundamentals are clear, your base is strong, your foundation is built, and then you can understand these things. But since sometimes some advanced question comes, I can't resist myself to answer it. That's why I'm doing it. So don't panic. What is this version? How does it impact us? All this will be covered in detail in our course. Okay. So right now let's not discuss about it. Okay. Let's come back to our project. And now what you see here is, you will see the controller, you will see the view, and you will see the index.html file. So what I want to now do is I want to attach to an action. Now before we get into an action, let's quickly look at an example here. So whenever you click on the button, something should happen. Okay, so I come here and I say press. So press is nothing but an action. Just like in HTML control chapter, you saw on click was an action. So here, since you are talking about SAP UI5 control, action will be according to this control class. You cannot use on click here. It's not an HTML element object. Remember guys, this is a very important funda fox. So what you created here is an object of what? Anybody? Is this an HTML element object? Is this an HTML element object? Anybody? Is this an HTML element object? No.
No, it's UI5.
It's a UI5 element object. So this is one funda fox coming here. Very important funda fox. So when we create, use SAP UI5 APIs to create or to define a new UI control. We use SAP UI5 control APIs. These are SAP UI5 control objects. They are not the HTML document objects. But then you say, the other day I was telling everyone that whenever you submit this code to UI5, it produces an equivalent HTML and CSS. Absolutely, yes, it does. And that's what, let's quickly have a look at it. So you see, when I execute this, what happened behind the scenes. So I press F12 and look at the DOM of this page. I go to the elements, and now you see in the elements, guys, there is something called content. This is your div element. Inside this, a view object have been created, and you see what SAP have done. The UI5 framework has converted this button code, what you have written, to an equivalent HTML code. You see, it's a button, and you see the ID of the control is IDBTN, and that's the same ID, if you remember, we have given at that point of time here in the button control. See, IDBTN. This is the ID we have given. Same ID is being displayed in the DOM. Now, if I want to obtain the object of HTML object, if I want to obtain DOM HTML object, what do I need to do? Anyone? If I want to obtain HTML DOM object, what do I do? Anybody? I taught you this in JavaScript chapter. Who will tell me what do I do? I need complete answer. To obtain an HTML element object based on its ID, what do we do? What do we do to obtain HTML element object? What document? I didn't get what is document. Swami has given me correct answer. You just have to use document dot get element by ID. Pass this HTML element ID. Press enter. So this is the HTML element object, guys. Remember, this is an HTML element object. And here what you see, this one, this guy here, this gentleman, this is the object of SAP UI5. Remember, this is UI5 element object, and this is HTML element object. Now the question is, Anubhav, how do you obtain the UI5 element object here? How can we obtain UI5 element object? For that, SAP gives you an API called sap.ui.getCore.byId, and put here the ID of the control, and then press enter. This is the UI5 control object, guys. Very important. This is the UI5 control object, and this is the HTML object, which means if I want to now change the button label at runtime, I have two techniques. One using this HTML element object, another is using UI5 control object. So if I want to change this, what I'll do is I'll take this and I just call dot set text, and I say Anubhav, press enter. Voila, you see on the UI, guys, the the UI5 element object has its now new name, and you see same will reflect in your HTML object also. You can see same is reflecting now in HTML object also. So you always work with UI5 element object. You never work with HTML element object in SAP UI5. Remember, you work with the control object of UI5. Why? Because it gives you these methods. Now, if you see set text method, do you think the set text method is available at the HTML element object level? What do you think? Is this set text method available at HTML element object level? Is this available or not available? So new name. Will this work or not work? Anybody? Do you think this will work or not work? It won't work, guys. because it's an HTML element object. It is not the UI5 element object. Hence, this API will give you an error. It says it's not a function. These functions are only available at UI5 element object level. They are not available at the HTML element object level. This is a very important point you need to understand. Though ultimately UI5 is converting into an HTML, you still don't use an HTML element object. You use UI5 element object, UI5 object of the control to work with it. Clear to everyone? Is that clear to everyone? So what did we do? Let me put this in the PPT, all these example. So we first got the objects, and then later point of time using this object we tried changing the properties, and then we tried changing the property using the document object, which didn't work. Yeah. Now coming to the next funda, folks, how to obtain the runtime object of running application. This is obtained using API sap.ui.getCore. Okay, this is the API we are using to obtain the runtime object of your running application. Is that clear to everybody? This API gives you the runtime object of running application, which means using this runtime object you can then access the UI5 elements also. Just the way document object gives you the runtime object of DOM in HTML chapter, it gives you the object of DOM. The ready-made object SAP UI GetCore gives you the UI5 runtime object of your running application. Is that clear to everyone? And that's what we have used here. SAP UI GetCore gives me this runtime object of my running application, and then I will call the application and say, please tell me in a control with its ID button, and that is what gives you the object of the control. So what I've done here, you can also break it down into pieces and do it in this way. So what you can do is, first you can obtain the runtime object of a running application, sap.ui.getCore you can do. Next step, you can call and get the control object. So I just call the button object. So ocore dot by id, and I can say id btn, and then finally obtn dot set text. I can do it, and I say wow, and you can see the text has been changed to wow. So the whole thing which you have done in one single step can also be done like this. What is this concept called, guys? When you can call one method after another and after another, what is this concept called in JavaScript? Perfect answer. Lokesh has already answered this. This is called chaining concept. We have just used the chaining, nothing else. Some of you may get confused, but don't worry, this is what the chaining concept is. So what I've done here in 3 steps is what I've done here earlier in one single step. Is that clear to everybody? Now what is this thing is doing? This was maybe a confusion running in many of your mind. What is this whole thing you've written above? It's nothing but, you can see, it's a chaining. So now this first thing, it's getting the runtime object of running instance. Second, you get it the object of the UI5 control. Third, you then call an API of the control to actually uh, give it instructions what you need to do. Similarly, if I want to hide the control in jQuery, what did we use? We used dollar selector dot hide or dot fade out. Here you can also do it using UI5 control and using jQuery also. Okay, so first let me show you using jQuery. So jQuery and hashtag my id of the control idbtn, and then I can say hide. So you can see the button got disappear. Now I'll say show, the button will appear, and you see button is appearing again. But I can do the same thing now UI5 object also. So this is my UI5 object obtn, and I can say set visible to false. You can see the button got disappear, and I can again call set visible to true, and you see button is appearing again. So you can see same exercise you can do it using your HTML element objects also. You can do it with the UI5 objects also. So there are multiple ways to achieve this. My job is not just to teach you concepts, but to teach you all the different possible ways, so that when you work in a project, guys, You don't get confused if one developer have used this, another developer have used this. But what is the right way, guys? Anyone? Can you tell me what is the right technique? Which is the better technique? Which option is better? Do you use HTML object or jQuery object to perform it, or do you use UI5 objects? Yes, right answer is you should use UI5 objects, because UI5 is built for that. You have built SAP UI5 is built for it. It has given you a lot of ready-made functions to achieve the desired results what you want. That's why you should use UI5 control object, not the jQuery or not the HTML object. But to understand that, now question comes in your mind that Anubhav, how do you know that there is a set visible property? How do you know that there is a set visible property? Anybody? What do you think? How do you know that there is a set visible property? No. How do somebody know? How do Anubhav know that there is a control called button? Yes, you have SAP UI5 SDK where the documentation is available. And now if we just go back to API reference and search for button and just scroll down to the button documentation, you will see all the available properties and constructor. So first let's go to constructor, and you can see this is the constructor of the code, and you see these are all the properties: text property, enable property, width property, help id property, icon property. See lots of properties are available in the UI control. Now coming to my first funda fox of control, whenever you have a property for a UI control, we always have setter and getter method for every property. Okay, that's what we have it. So we always have setter and getter method for every property, guys. That's what exactly how it behaves. So for example, if a button has text property, we will have what? Anybody? Can anybody tell me we will have what? What are all the two methods you will have it in the system for that control for this property? Perfect answer. To read and, or sorry, to change and read text of button. That's what we have it. Setter and getter method, guys, for every single property. Very important funda fox. If you forget this funda fox, I cannot help you. I will not be able to help you in upcoming classes if you forget funda fox. Believe me or not, Anubhav will not be able to help you. You need to work hard. You need to remember these concepts. Without them, I cannot help you. After 4 or 5 classes, you will not understand a single bit of it. Believe me, it's my open challenge. After 5 classes from here, you will not understand a single line of code if you forget these funda foxes. Is that clear? Okay, setter and getter method are available for every property, which means if there is a property text property, there is a set method. If there is a property text property, then there is a get method also. So let's try this out one more time with another example. So I come back. Can you see a width property here? So if I want to change my button width, which method shall I use to change it? Anybody? If I want to change my button width, which method of my UI5 control I use to change the width? Set width, perfect answer. Remember, there is never a space in the method names. So you have to just follow the UI5 naming convention or JavaScript naming convention, which means first letter is small, next consecutive word, first letter is capital. So set W capital, set width, and I'll just change it to width to, let's say, 500 pixels. And watch carefully on the UI, guys. Your wow method, your wow button, press enter. You see the width of the button have changed to 500 pixels. Correct? You can reduce it down again. You can make it to 300 pixels. So that's how you can work with UI5 control object. You can work with its properties using setter and getter method. You can also call get method to read what is the state. So I can say get visible. This will tell me whether button is visible or not. Press enter, you see it's true, which means button is visible. Clear? Setter and getter method for every single control. Now similar to the setter getter, similar to the properties, you also have events. What is an event used for? Anyone? What do you think event is used for? What purpose? What is an event? I taught you about
triggering the action.
perfect
Yeah,
answer.
for trigger the action.
Or triggering the action. So the one which we saw in HTML chapter, on click was an event of an HTML element. Similarly, press is an event here for UI5 control. So there is always, there is always some or the other event which you will use to attach your functionality to the event. For example, when your button is clicked, this event triggers, and then you attach a functionality that I want to do this particular thing when user click on the button. Okay, so let's take this example, press, and now what I'll do is I quickly go to my code, and you see press here, and I'll just write an anonymous function directly here, and in this I will put some JavaScript code, say alert, welcome to UI5 SDK. Okay, that's it. I'm writing semicolon, save it. Let's come back and refresh the page. Watch carefully what will happen. I click on the button, and voila, you see it gives me a pop-up saying welcome to UI5 SDK. So that's how you attach your event to a button. Okay, press is an event, and press is the event name, and then you attach a function to it. But is this right way, guys? Are we following model view controller architecture? Is this right MVC? What did I do? What is the mistake I did here in this example? What is the mistake I've done? Did I follow MVC example?
Should be run in the controller.
Yes, perfect. So this piece of code is your functionality, and this piece of functionality should be into the controller. It should not be written in the view, guys. Fine. So hope you understood this. To follow model view controller, your processing logic should never ever be in the view. It should be in the controller. Yeah. And that's the main reason why we used XML views, not JavaScript views. Because if you using JavaScript view, there is a chance that developer would end up putting some functionality in the code, in the view itself. Because it's JavaScript, it's JS. Anybody can write JavaScript code here, which would then violate model view controller architecture. That's the reason SAP don't promote using JavaScript views in their examples or in their standard applications as well, because there is a chance that a developer using JavaScript view would end up writing code inside the view which is of JavaScript type. If it is JS view, then they will end up writing some code. But if you use XML, JSON, or HTML views, they are not programming languages. You don't have ever any chance to write down code in them inside the view. So that's why SAP recommends XML view. This was one question which was asked in interview: why SAP prefer XML views over JavaScript views, or why we use XML views, not JavaScript views. So why do we use, interview question, XML views rather JavaScript views? Very important interview question which you will see a lot of places. So the first main reason is to protect MVC guidelines. If a developer usage JavaScript views, then there is a chance of putting code in view, which violates processing code. Okay, processing code, which violates the MVC principle. Okay, very important, guys, which violates the MVC principle. That's the reason we don't put our code, processing code, inside the or we don't use JavaScript views. We use XML views, because in XML views there is no way. because XML is not a programming language and there is no way you can put processing logic in XML views. Then you will say, Anubhav, then how will the processing happen? Processing happens in controller, guys, and you can connect your view to the controller quite easily. You can tell your view that please call this particular method, that you can do it. Okay, so that's one reason. Second reason, XML is the industry standard to put views in a UI based applications. This is an industry standard. This industry standard have mainly come from Google. So Google has a very powerful operating system called Android, which we all use. In Android, whenever you want to develop a application, you always use XML views. So the benefit of this course is not just limited to UI5 in your career, guys. You can soon become an Android development quite easily. After learning this entire course, all the concepts which you will learn here, you can apply on Android as it is. Maybe some minor training of on Android is required. You will understand remaining all the steps quite easily in Android, because Android also built on the same MVC architecture. We have something called activity.xml. Those who worked on Android, this is the first view which Android creates for you when you create a first Android app. Activity.view.xml gets created by Android in SDK. So that's what is an industry standard, guys. XML is an industry standard to place views. Third important reason, parsing of XML in devices is faster than JavaScript. Now the question comes, what is parsing? Parsing is nothing but what is happening, guys, here. If you remember my previous class, I discussed about it. What exactly happens when you write an XML view or a JavaScript view? Can anybody tell me what happens when you write a XML or a JavaScript view? What happens behind the scenes? What exactly happening? What is happening here? When you write an XML or a JavaScript view, what UI5 framework is doing for you? What is it doing? What exactly is happening here? Anyone? It's rendering the HTML and CSS. Framework is converting it to the equivalent code, correct? This is called parsing process. So the parsing of XML is faster. So if you have given XML as an input to your renderer, it may be converted into 0.2 millisecond. But if you give JavaScript, it takes little more time, maybe 0.3 millisecond. It takes more time to convert to equivalent HTML and CSS, because system has to separate the processing logic with the rendering logic in a JavaScript view. Hence it takes more time, guys. So that is another reason which comes from the framework. A benefit which is not pretty apparent to you. People will say still you can use JS view. Yes, I would also say you can, but recommendation is not, because then you violating MVC principle. That's the reason SAP prefers and they promote XML views. Coming back to the percentage of usage, you will see 20% of applications JavaScript views are being used, which are again custom applications. When it comes to the remaining application, 80% consumption is of XML views, and JSON and HTML views are used 0%. I have not seen any project till date in my life in last 5 years on UI5 where we use HTML or JSON view, not at all. But doesn't mean we don't need to know them. We'll just have an introduction of these two views just to show you how do they look like. XML views and JavaScript views are used mainly in the applications. Again, XML view predominantly being used in apps because that's a SAP standard. If you look at all SAP applications, you will always find XML views are being used there. Clear to everyone? What is the percentage? Why we use JavaScript view? Why we not use JavaScript views over XMLs? Very important interview question. And what is the percentage of usage in the views? Okay. So maybe we not see the XML page source on the view with XML. Yes, that's also one reason. So you will not be able to see the source code of XML views in your sources tab. But if it's a JavaScript view, you will see the source code. Okay. But you will not be able to see the source code of XML views. In fact, you will not be able to see them also. When you deploy this app to the gateway, you'll never see the code also. You need to do something special to do it, but that's not right now in scope. I will give you that later point of time, the required knowledge, how to debug and how to do other stuff. So that's high dose of antibiotic. Right now I'm parking that question, so please park it. We'll come to that point again. I have that already in my mind. Okay, now moving next. So we saw that we have events. So events are very helpful for me to subscribe to the right information so that I can write the functionality. So now I'll switch back and move this piece of function into the controller. So can anybody tell me, if I write this, move this, and maybe I go to controller and write a function here, and I say function name is my Anubhav function. Watch carefully the naming convention. First letter is small, next consecutive word, first letter is capital. And then I put it the function over here and end it with a comma. Remember guys, function should be ended with comma in UI5. That's how you should end them. But now you see it's just giving an error because there's nothing else after that, hence it's giving an error. For time being, I'll remove it. This is your function. Now this function exists in controller. How can I call the function which exists in controller? In yesterday's class I taught you what to do to call method of a class. Here the class is your controller, and what is the object of controller here available? Perfect answer, Udit. You have watched all my video properly and you are also following all my session. Thank you so much. So just to tell you guys, Udit have joined my sessions very late. Very late. He joined it about, maybe I think Monday. He called me and he said, Anubhav, I want to join UI5. 2 days back, you can see he's replying. 2 days back he has joined. He has completed all the videos in last 2 days, whatever we covered, and he also have prepared the notes, and these notes he's always referring to remember concept. And in last class I taught this concept of object of controller, which I showed all of you, and you see Udit is able to answer because even though he joined later than you guys, he's able to answer. Why? The only difference is he's practicing, he's remembering things, he's noting down things, and he remember all funda foxes. That's why he's able to answer. So you see, this is what I also covered in last class. If I show you the PPT, I discussed about it, how the orchestration happens between view and controller. So we discussed that you will pump in the object of the object. You will create the object of the view, and then you will supply the name of the controller to the UI5 framework. I think that PPT is a different one. It's there in my another laptop. I'm using a different laptop today. So then later point of time, you will get the object of the controller, and that object of the controller you are actually passing the view, and that object of the controller is passed here. O controller, you see, this is the object of the controller. I use this, and now I can call my method my Anubhav function. Is that the one? You see, my Anubhav function, that's the name. It's case sensitive. You should start with small letter, next consecutive word, first letter is capital. That's it. And now you will see your processing logic is separated into the controller. Let's go ahead and execute it. Come back and refresh. Click on the button. Now you see the same output. Do you see a difference from user's point of view? As an end user, do you see a difference in the code? As an end user, do you see a difference? No, user will not see the difference, but these are all the guidelines which a developer must follow. Many times you might have also done some UI5 development in your company, but you are today not confident. You are not confident that you can manage that code. You are not confident that if an error comes, will you be able to solve that error, because you copy pasted that code from internet, you copy pasted that code from some sample program or some training blog on the SDN. Many people does it in their life. They start with a app or they start with any technology, they go to SDN, they copy paste the code, they copy paste the code, they produce the output, they create an ALV, they can create a report, whatever they like, they do it, and they give it to company. But these people will be soon busted because they don't have a knowledge. They are just following somebody else's knowledge. And if somebody have done that mistake, that mistake will also be done by their program, and they will be caught one day, they will be trapped one day. And that's why you need a proper training, you need a proper understanding of fundamentals, so that you can build your own code rather than trusting on somebody else's code. That's the biggest mistake you're doing in your life. If you're trusting somebody else's code, you don't know the intention why it was written, and if you're just adapting it as it is, you are souping yourself. So don't do that. Write every single line of code. Once you understand, copy paste to speed up your development. That's the guru mantra, to learn things in a right way. Okay, so now for user point of view there's no difference, but for developer point of view this is a big difference. You are now following proper MVC architecture. Okay, moving next, what is aggregation? So we also see in UI5 SDK there's something called association or aggregation. So methods, you all know that there are methods, and if you look at the method, you will mainly find setter and getter methods. For every property of the control you will find setter and getter method. Now also interestingly, for every event, okay, for every event at control level, we also have attach, fire and deattach methods also available. Okay, so this is what happens. Attach, deattach and fire methods are available. So for example, if I don't want to click on a button and I want to still trigger the button code, what can I do? If I don't want to click on the button and I want to still trigger the button code, what can I do? I can fire the event programmatically. How? So first let's get the object of the control again. So I say var o button o core by id. So now you see the scope is gone, so I have to again write it. So var optn sap ui get core dot by id idbtn obtn dot, I can say fire press. You see, for every event, press is an event and there is a fire press method. Okay, press is an event and there is a fire press method. Press enter and you see the code is been triggered. So this is another way programmatically triggering an event in the UI5. You see, the object of UI5 framework is very powerful, guys. This is the object of your UI control, which is giving you all these features. If you use HTML element object, this will not be available to you. You will not be able to leverage the power of UI5 APIs if you use HTML element object. That's why we use this object. Hope it's clear to everyone. Hope it is clear to everyone, guys. What did we do? This is the method available ready-made. For every event you will have fire, attach and deattach method. So I can also dynamically change the button code. So I can say obtn dot attach press, and I can now write a function inside. I am attaching this function and I say alert. This is a dynamic function. Okay, and watch carefully now what happens. So I've attached a function now, guys. Watch carefully when I click on the button. So I click on the button and you see first the earlier attached event is triggered, and now you see this is a dynamic function. So whatever function you have attached, anonymous function, to your alert attach press method, it has triggered it. Okay, so these are all the ready-made methods. You have it available with you when it comes to events also. Clear to everyone what is happening behind the scenes? I am teaching all these things one by one, step by step, guys. Very important. Okay. Next. So this is about the event. Now, what next? What is the next level? You will also see something called association here. What is it? What is it, guys? Association. I have explained about this in very much detail in my Oops ABAP course. And as I promised all of you, I'll give you complimentary Oops videos. So that also I will give you soon. But before we get into it, let's understand what is association. So can you build a whole software with one class? Anybody? Can you build whole software with one class? Can you build whole software with one class? Answer. Anyone? Can you build your whole software with one class? I'm talking about object oriented now. I would say yes. You can. Perfect answer. Swami has given it right. Yes, you can, but the code will not be modularized. It will not be reusable. Okay. It will not be reusable. It will not be extensible. It will not be modularized. That's the problem. So what do we do? What do we do? We create lots of classes, correct? So let's take an example of an airplane class. Okay. So I create an airplane class and I want a passenger plane and a cargo plane class. And I need a cargo plane class. Okay. Now what do you think? Does passenger plane class have same attributes as a plane class? Anybody? Does passenger plane class has same attributes as main plane class? Yes or no? Anyone? Yes, it is. It is. It is. It is. Yes. A plane has properties of what kind of properties? Height, width, airline company, color, right? These are common properties of a plane. Now, same set of properties are also required for passenger and cargo, but they additionally need more properties like passenger plane have number of seats, which cargo plane doesn't have. On the other side, cargo plane has amount of space what it can carry, right? In square feet, it has the volume it can carry, the amount of space it has to carry the freight. So, in that case, what is a better technique? To reuse the properties which are common for all the planes, you put it in a class and you inherit from the plane class, and whatever is unique in passenger and cargo, you note down those properties in these child classes. Isn't that, oh oops abab, isn't that oops programming? So anything which is common, you put it in parent class, you inherit from it and put it in the child class, all the required you inherit and you bring all the properties and methods which are public and protected into the child classes and reuse them. And then whatever is extra, you put that in the child classes, in the concrete classes. These are called concrete classes or child classes. And on the other side, the plain class is known as what? Anybody? What is this called? Plain class, base class, or parent class? Super class. Very good. So these are all different names of these thing. Now let's take an example of engine class. Can a plane fly without engine? A plane cannot fly without engine. So what do you think? What will be the relationship between two? Is an engine having same property as a plane? Anybody? Is an engine having same property as a plane? No, they are two different objects, completely different. They have different properties. So can you do an inheritance between them? Does this example, does the relationship between them is an inheritance? No, it's not inheritance. What is this relationship called? Anybody? This is called association, guys. So inheritance, mainly those who don't have knowledge on oops, they actually confuse always. They only know inheritance, they don't know this is but also very important concept of oops called association. It's a relationship between two classes which is not inheritance. Okay, it's called association. Clear? It's called association, relationship between two classes. Similarly, if you look at passengers, passenger has what properties a passenger has? Anybody? What properties a passenger has? Anyone? What properties? person, age, gender, name, yeah, passport number, social security number, traveler's number, yeah, all these things are your or your properties of passenger class. Now that is also associated to plane because a plane can fly multiple passengers. How many passengers a plane can have? Anyone? How many passengers can fly together in a plane? Anybody? How many passengers can fly inside a plane together? Anyone? N number of planes. That's why we call cardinality of this association is 1 to n, because you can have one plane with multiple passengers flying in. Similarly, if you look at engine class, you have 1 to 1 relationship. You have plane with one engine. Yeah. So let's take it example 1 to 1. Right now, let's say this plane has only one engine, so it's a 1 to 1 relationship. But now comes his association types. Association is of two types, guys. Now, can a plane fly without passenger? Anybody? Can a plane fly without passenger? Yes, it can fly without passenger. Ideally, it should not, but it can. Okay. Ideally, if you want your business to be profitable, plane should carry passengers. But maybe you can fly the plane without passengers also. So is this a must-have relationship or a should-have relationship? Anybody? Is this relationship is a must-have or should-have? Anyone? What is this relationship? It should-have relationship. It's not must-have. This relationship is known as aggregation. Okay. This is known as aggregation. In UML representation, this is represented using empty rhombus. Okay. This is whatever I'm writing here is a UML, Unified Markup Language representation of your code, and it is represented using empty rhombus, guys. This is how it is represented. An empty rhombus represents this relationship. That's called your aggregation. Hope it is clear to everybody what is aggregation. It's a relationship between two class, which is a should have relationship. It could be 1 to 1, 1 to n, or whatever. Cardinality could be anything, but it's a should have relationship. It's not must have relationship, which means both objects can function separately. Both of them can function separately without independent. Passenger can also travel without plane because they can travel by ship, by bus, by car, whatever, but cannot not necessarily be functioning together. It's a should have relationship. On the other side, if you look at the engine, can a plane fly without engine? Can a plane fly without engine? And can an engine fly without plane? Have you seen an engine flying in the sky without plane? Have you ever seen an engine? अरे देखो इंजन जा रहा है हवा में. कभी हुआ है? Did it ever happen? Never happens, right? Engine can itself cannot fly. It needs plane. So what type of relationship it is? It's a must-have relationship, and this is called composition. Clear to everyone? What is association? What are all the two types of association we have? Composition and aggregation. Clear to everybody? It's represented using a filled rhombus. That's a representation of composition. So hope these two concepts are very much clear to you. Association. Now one question to all of you. Is association is an inheritance? Anyone? Is association is inheritance? Yes or no? No, it's not inheritance. It's a relationship between two classes. What are all the types of association we have? Anybody who will answer? What are all the types of association we have? What are all the types of association?
Composition and aggregation.
Perfect answer. We have two types of association. Should have relationship and aggregation. Must have relationship composition. Same applies in UI5. If at all you have a control, let's say table, okay, and you want columns inside table, do you think columns is an inheritance or do you think column is an association? Anybody? Do you think columns of a table is a aggregation, inheritance, or is association? It is association. Let me show you quickly on UI5 SDK. If I go to table class, okay, if I go to table class in UI5, you will find something called aggregation. So they are calling it as aggregation, not actually association, which is indeed again a type of association. So let me go to this class. It's little slow. Let me just go to the class, table class. Now table itself is one object, but there is a column which is coming and aggregating to table. You see these many aggregations. These are all other objects coming and attaching to table. You see column is an aggregation. It represents an object of column class. Clear? We will of course use it. We will build a table. I'll show you in the system how it works. But just to understand the concept, guys, it's important you to know this. What is association? Hope it's clear to everybody. What is aggregation? So if you look at any control now, you understand what is constructor, properties, aggregation, association, events and methods. Is that clear to everybody? All the properties related to a control, all the sections related to a control. Any doubts on that? Anybody before we close today's class? Unfortunately, I could not show you debugging today, but definitely we'll see debugging in upcoming days. So don't panic, wait for the right time. When the right time comes, I give you the right dose of antibiotic. If I give you high dose of antibiotic, you will die. What is constructor? Anybody, what is constructor of a class? Who will tell me? Any developer in the room? What is concept of constructor in object oriented programming? What is constructor? Constructor is a default method available for a class which gets called when the object of the class is created. Correct? That's a definition of constructor. So you will see that there are properties. The main use of constructor is to initialize the property values. So you will see these many properties of a constructor. So when you are creating the object, you can anyways pass these properties, and that's what we did here. If you come back and see, we are creating object of button class. While creation, we pass the property values of constructor. This is constructor only. So I have not set the property after the object created. I set these properties during the object creation. When the object is being created, that time only I have set the properties of the button. So this is a constructor only. Okay, this is constructor only, guys. Clear to everyone? What is constructor? So we are passing the properties during creation of object. That's nothing but constructor. So all the properties what you have it in the control level can be passed during creation of object. You can also pass later point of time using methods. You can say this dot set text. But actually I'm then writing processing logic in the view which should not be done. So I cut it, I place it here, and I'll say here sap.ui.getCore dot by id, and then id btn, and then I say set text Anubhav, got it. What will happen now? Can anybody guess what will happen when I click on the button? Anybody? What will happen when I click on the button? What will happen? Anyone? What will happen when I click on the button now? Anybody? What will happen? It calls the controller and the text will change. Yes. You see? Anubhav, we got it. Very small and simplest example, but lot of different concepts we learned here, guys. Lot of concepts we have learned. Just to give you a glimpse of debugging, press F12. Just to give you a glimpse, go to sources, go to controller, go to code, come down, put up your breakpoint, click on the button, and you see the code is getting triggered. You can debug now here. This was one question which was asked initially by Hitesh. Hitesh, hope it's clear now. Just to give you a glimpse of debugging, of course we'll see a lot of debugging going forward, but just to give you a glimpse of debugging, you can see you can debug like this. Okay, you can see you can debug like this. Okay, now during runtime also you can do lot. So while I'm debugging, okay, while I'm debugging, I can just may say F8, and then I can use same piece of code, and I can go to console, and I can say, oh, debugging please this game, and now just execute, and you see during debug you can change a lot of things. Okay, right? Now Lokesh is asking, can't we hide the controller code because this is visible to whole the world? Yes, it will happen automatically for security reasons. When you deploy your app in the launch pad, you will not be able to see this code to the whole world. But still there is a crack with which you can download the source code and see, and there is no restriction, guys. You can see the code actually. It's very easy. Even standard UI5 code you can see, SAP's code you can see it. There is no restriction. It's client side JavaScript. It has to be downloaded in the browser in order to execute. There is no way. If you want some functionality to be hidden, which you don't want to see it, put it in a app and call it from UI. Put that functionality in a app and call it from UI. But whatever you're putting in JS will be visible onto the user interface, onto the browser. There is no way to hide it. Okay. Okay, we'll discuss about it in detail in upcoming days when I deploy our app to the gateway. That time you will understand that. Okay, there's one more question from Udit, that don't we need to use brackets? No, we don't need to use brackets here. You see, you can simply put your function like this. You can put bracket, but you can put it like that also. That way it's not a problem. Okay, so if I come back here, press enter. Okay, it's now giving an error, guys. You see, bracket will not be allowed. I mean, parentheses are not allowed. Okay, parentheses are not allowed, guys. You have to put it without parentheses. This is not allowed. It's not allowed. Okay, hope it's clear to everybody. Parentheses are not allowed. Great. So whatever I taught you, please practice that. Remember, these funda foxes will break you, or it will make you. These funda foxes, without them you cannot proceed learning UI5. I am teaching everything from very scratch, very bottom. Okay, and I hope you all will go through this. You have 3 days now. Okay, you will go through this. Okay, now there's a question, can't we hide controllers object because core logic? Okay, this is done. How do we get to know where to write the code, say in the controller or the view? You always write processing logic in the controller, Sam. You never write processing logic in the view. Okay, that's a golden rule. That's MVC architecture. You just need to follow MVC. When we switch to XML view, anyways it will naturally happen, because you can't write JavaScript code in XML views, so it will naturally happen. Clear, Sam? Now Swami is facing one issue. Let's look at Swami's screen. Swami, can you unmute your line and share your screen? Let's see what issue you are facing in your basic program, and then we'll try to see if we can address that. I'll give you the control. Please unmute your line, Swami. I'll make you the
Okay.
yeah, please share your screen.
It's asking me to download the extension.
You can no problem. We will wait for you. Anybody, any other question in the meantime? Let Swami set up his system. Yeah, now we can see your screen, Swami. Please go ahead. There's a question, how to differentiate between object and method without parentheses. You have to trust the system that object name dot method name is what you're calling, and that too only from the perspective of view, guys. Within the controller, if you're calling one method from another method, then you have to use parentheses, which we will see it in detail. Okay,
Okay, this is what I'm getting error here.
okay. Now can you do one thing for me before we get into anything? On the top right corner you see triple dot button. Just click on that triple dot button. Yes, please click on that. And can you select on dock side to the middle one? Dock side, third one. Dock side, can you see dock side? Yes, this one you please choose. So you can see both console and the user interface on the same screen. Click on that, please. And now you see it saying Swami slash view slash main dot view dot js syntax error. Parenthesis is missing. You can see clearly it's telling you syntax error. Uncaught error, syntax error. Can you see line number, the first red line? Syntax error, parenthesis is missing in the argument list. Go back. Go back to web ID code. You can see line number 18 web ID is already telling you the error in the view. Go to the view. Line number 18 web ID is already telling you the red cross. Can you see the red cross over there? Line number 18, red cross. You see, this is the error. You have started a parenthesis, then you started a curly braces. You close the curly braces, but you forgot to close the parenthesis. Save this. You can just go back and refresh on the second window, or you can play also.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Now, one question to all of you, those who are watching my session. Let's see who has watched it carefully the last session and answer this. Go back to your output in the other tab, Swami. Output. In the next tab, you see the output, right? Yeah. Now, Swami is running this, but the screen is white in the background. What do I do to get blue crystal screen? Anybody?
Theme.
Theme parameter. Swami, go back and show me the theme parameter value.
What is that actually we have to?
Go to index HTML. You see theme is already here set. Why he is not able to see the blue screen? What to do? Theme is already set. Perfect answer. Answered correctly. You have to come down. Come down, please. In the body,
Okay.
put the class name in the body. Yes. Space class equals to double quote SAP small U capital I small UI. Yes. Small. It should be camel case. Body B capital. Body B capital. No, not this one. Remove it. Remove this. I'm asking class name only. Class name. In the class name, SAPY body you have to put B capital. Save this. Go back and run that again.
Okay, good.
Got it? So that's the theme. Blue
Yep, thank you.
the screen. Hope it's clear to everybody. Those who answered the question, very good. Those who cannot, you need more work. You need more hard work, guys. You are not putting ample amount of time to the code. Please spend time. You will make use of your money and time properly. If you are not spending time, you are Hope it's clear to everybody. What did we do? How did we do? Okay. You need to put line by line code, guys, the way I'm teaching you. Believe me, it is an initial effort. After 5-6 classes, you will become an expert in UI5. 100% guarantee. You will become an expert in UI5 after 5-6 classes. Initial effort, I'm begging you, initial effort of yours. Please give me that. You will become an expert in UI5. Nobody will be able to match you. Okay. Please understand, I need some initial effort from you. Swami, one question to you. Do you want to continue with live batch or do you want the video recorded session? Because Sarath has said
Live batch. Yeah, live batch.
live batch. What about Sarath? Sarath has sent
Yes.
email about.
Even is joining as a live batch. Yeah.
Okay, but he has sent me an email asking for video recordings of previous batch.
Or maybe yes. He doesn't know that all 10 classes he can watch it on live batch.
Can you explain him this thing?
Yeah, that's sure.
Thank you. Great. With that, it's a wrap on today.